Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bridging the Gap. Make sure to leave a like on this video down below and subscribe. My name is Alvin. I lead right on most issues, and I'll be representing the Republican side.
My name is Luke. I lean left on most issues, and I'll be representing the Democratic side. Hey guys, in this video, we'll be giving you our bipartisan analysis on the current state of the betting markets for the 2024 presidential elections.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know that are not gambling addicts, and are not degenerates, there are betting markets on the presidential election and a lot of politics as well on a site called Polymarket. There also is Predict It, which is another site, but it's recently gone down in its relevancy because of some legal things that they got into, and their markets are just worse now. So generally, most people have moved to Poly for their betting for their gambling needs. They also just have a lot more diversity in their markets. But regardless, on the betting markets, the top line right now is Trump with a 54.6% chance to win, with Harris at a 44.9% chance to win. Now, we're going to be going through all the states which have their individual betting markets and talking about uh, where bettors have each state and why that
Yep.
translates to this top line. Do you want to give the analysis of like what number goes in what column?
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to be classifying these based on what percentage chance, like what's the amount of cents each candidate is allocated in the betting markets. So essentially, if you have a higher likelihood to win, if more people are betting on you winning, then your price goes up in the market, and your share goes up. So essentially, if it's 90 cents or higher, 90% or higher, we are going to be putting that in a solid margin. I believe. We just yeah. So if it's 75, between 75 and 90, we're going to put it in the likely margin. 60 to 75 in lean, and anything below 60 is going to be in a tilt margin. Yes.
That's correct. All right. Now, we're going to be talking about why we think the market is at a certain price at the end of the video. But for now, we're going to start classifying the states. And we're going to start with some states that I haven't classified just yet. On the Democratic side, we're going to classify Minnesota in the safe column. It is over 90 cents. This market did move when she selected Tim Walz to be her running mate significantly into the safe column. So that's important to note.
Hmm.
On the Republican side, we have a lot of states that we didn't classify as safe in our prediction, but the betting markets have classified as safe. So that's going to include Alaska, Iowa, Ohio, Texas, Florida,
Hmm.
and I think Maine second,
Yes.
if I'm
Yes.
not mistaken. So yeah, that's a lot of states and a district that go to the safe column. Invariably, you're going to probably have betting markets be a lot more bullish on states that are like, probably Trump's not going to win by that much, but it's very likely he'll win. For example, a state like Texas or Florida, you probably there's like a 10% chance of Harris winning, which the betting markets do take that into account.
Yep.
But if you were to look at the betting markets and Texas is floating at 85 cents, for example, 85% chance, that's probably a good bet for you to take because you're likely going to see Trump win Texas, not by a big margin, but he's going to probably win. Almost no
Yeah.
signs point to Harris winning. And so you'd buy that.
And yeah, I think something else we should note is like this isn't an exact translation to how close these states will be. Um, like Texas can still like can still be pretty close in this. Like Trump could only win by 3 in this scenario, for example. But your bet would still be correct if you bet on Trump. Like this is just like where they think it'll end up, not exactly how close the state is, but yeah, whether or not they think it'll vote for Trump. And I definitely agree that all these states are very likely to vote for Trump even if their margins are like close-ish or even closer than 2020.
Yep. Let's now move into the likely states, which I'm pretty sure are only on the Democrat side, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think there are any Republican ones.
Mm,
But
yeah.
let's go on to Nebraska second, which recently had a lot of good polling data for Harris. So that makes sense. Also, I think the winner take all push to make Nebraska all five electoral votes for Trump probably actually just hurts him now in any chances in the Omaha suburbs.
Yeah,
We
I think
also,
it fizzled
yeah,
out. Yeah, the effort.
you want to talk
Mhm.
about Nebraska and New Hampshire and Maine? Sorry.
Yeah, so both of those are also in the likely column in the betting markets. They give Harris an 85% shot of winning New Hampshire and an 88% shot of winning Maine. And also Virginia. They give her an 88% shot of winning Virginia. So yeah, that would also be in the likely column there. Again, I think this makes sense. Democrats have been doing really well in New England recently. They've been making gains among educated white voters, so I think that translates really well to them Democrats doing well in New England. And then Virginia, yeah, it's generally a state that has, again, growing suburbs and has been generally moving left, but the trend got a little weird in the last 3 years, I'd say. But yeah, I'd say Harris. This does make sense, like that Harris is ultimately favored in the betting markets here.
Yeah, I agreed. Virginia is a little more foggy, and the New Hampshire and Maine are smaller states, so that explains why there might be more uncertainty there because, each person moving to the other side could make a bigger percent shift. And so technically, there maybe in a best case scenario, Trump could win those, which we're coming out with our best case scenario soon. So make sure you subscribe for that. Now, in terms of the final seven swing states, which we have talked about extensively on this channel, and that will decide the election, I think the betting markets are better at determining the margin if you had to look at it because of how close they are, people are definitely going to be betting based off of a lot more polling data, which is going to depend on the margin and not just on, oh, invariably, one person's going to win. But anyways, I think we're going to be starting off with some Trump states
Yeah,
because he's
I'm
been
I'm just
doing
looking
well.
now. The best state, the most solid of these states is Arizona currently of the core seven swing states on the betting markets. So yeah, they give the betting markets are giving Trump a 66% chance of winning the state of Arizona. You know, I mean, what do we think about this? I think it generally adds up. I would say Trump has been polling really well in Arizona. I think most recently, like just today, this morning, New York Times dropped a poll, another Arizona poll putting Trump up six in the state. That's a pretty big lead. So I do kind of understand, like despite Arizona generally shifting left, in other statewide elections, that like with this kind of polling looking that good for Trump, I kind of see why the betting markets would see this. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, even that poll, which had a very good result for Harris in Pennsylvania, probably the most important state this election cycle, still had Trump up six, five and a half, six
Hmm.
in Arizona. And that's a very big margin. I think it's almost outside the margin of error there. So that's very good news for him there. There's also just a lot of polling data. Like if you look at the polling data, it's very consistently pro-Trump. Very few pro-Harris polls there. I mean, there's a few scattered in there, but the average is very consistently for Trump
Hmm.
by around a point. Even if you take out all the low quality, Republican aligned pollsters, he's still up by around a point there. So that makes a lot of sense. And it was a very close day in 2020. Bettors are probably just betting on the fact that Trump's likely to do better than in 2020 nationally. And so probably that also translates to Arizona despite the shift left there.
Hmm.
And next we're going to move to Georgia, right? Or is it North Carolina actually? North
Georgia,
Carolina 63. Georgia, it's going to be Georgia at 64 cents over
yeah.
North Carolina, which, that's another interesting point, right? Georgia, also another state that has been polling well for Trump. I think these three states have been recently polling very well. A lot of Trump plus one, Trump plus two polls in the recent average. Let's take a look at the Real Clear Politics polling average here. Obviously, in Arizona here, where, like I said, Trump was up one, very big drop of the New York Times poll. But Georgia here, also another very consistent pro-Trump polling here, especially this Quinnipiac plus five, which really helps him in the average. But despite that, I think we're headed for a very close race in Georgia yet again. I'm not sure. This was one of the only states in 2020 where the polling was pretty good. It missed or practically nationally, where Trump outperformed the polls by very significant margins in every other swing state. But in Georgia, Biden did end up winning it, and the polling even might have underestimated Biden. Not sure, but yeah, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, I guess in terms of the polling averages, Trump is leading. So I guess I mean, I don't know. I feel like the average better might just be looking at the polls a lot. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how in depth these bettors, these people putting money on these races go into these elections. If they're I don't know. I actually wonder what the psychology of these people are. Like, are they going just based off vibes? Like, oh, I'm just gonna place money on the candidate I like, or are they actually looking at tr long-term trends and actually going into because I mean, I don't know. It is interesting to see that Trump is bettors are putting a lot of money on Trump here, in a state that has been trending left. And I don't know. Oh, it's definitely going to be a really close state. I guess in lieu of the polling, though, I guess this does make some sense to me. Um, yeah. And then I guess after that we go to North Carolina because that's the next.
I just want to make a quick
Oh,
note because you did talk about the psychology of the bettors, and I actually have a recent theory I've been cooking up
okay.
on why Trump's doing better. And it's not probably your theory of the rich, Elon bettors coming in. I actually think Trump has been making extremely good gains with young men. And these are the people that are going to be putting money on elections because
Oh,
if
okay.
you think about it, women are not known to gamble at all. Women are very risk averse, and I'm not trying to be sexist or whatever. I think this is very clearly laid out that women are much less risk takers than men. And Trump is doing very well with men. He's leading men by a
Hmm.
big margin. He's also probably maybe even leading among young men, which he likely is. There's a lot of evidence to back that up that he's leading with men from the age of 18 to 29, which are going to be the people that put money on elections. And
That's an interesting
I
theory.
I think that a lot of people just generally put money on who they want to win because why would you want to root against the person that you want to win and then have to win money when your preferred candidate and worldview loses? No one wants to root for both sides on election night. They want to just root for Trump or root for
Yeah.
Harris. And so you're likely going to put money on the side you think is going to win. I think that the top line number at least is going to be skewed in that way. I think the people that delve into the statewide markets, however, are looking at polling and a lot of long-term trends because people that are diving deep into these smaller markets are definitely more politically engaged. If you're
Hmm.
just a degenerate, person or some young man that is looking at betting, I don't think you care to look at into Georgia's swing trends and everything like that
Ah,
and
okay.
put money into there. So I think the statewide markets are actually going to be a lot more accurate, while the top line number is going to be a lot more inaccurate and probably biased to the Republicans this cycle.
Well,
But
okay. I'm not sure. Actually, okay, that does make sense to me, but that is really I haven't really thought of it that way. Like your big initial theory that the demographic of bettors is going to be mainly male, and I think when I imagine someone who'd bet money on say sports for example, I do typically imagine men doing that. I don't know many female bettors. I mean, maybe
you
maybe there's this massive demographic of them that I'm missing, but yeah,
no,
that
I
is
don't think you are.
that is
Yeah,
that's
walk
true. I
into
haven't
any
really.
casino, walk into any casino, and it's all men
Yeah,
usually. I mean, there's a 20% female, maybe. Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, especially with the gender gap, I think we've seen in polling a lot. Harris has been polling better among women, and Trump's been polling better among men, and that kind of that seemingly being more exaggerated than it was in 2020. Yeah, I mean I could see that making some sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that definitely when I hear that at face value, that does add up to me. Um,
Likely exacerbated by the abortion issue now. A lot of women probably voting on abortion, a lot of men likely voting on the economy and immigration. So that's going to be changing a lot of minds. But
okay,
North
let's go to our next
Carolina,
state. Yeah.
You want to
Should
talk
I
about it?
should I take this?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
this is a little interesting to me. North Carolina actually is slightly closer here than Georgia. That is interesting to me because um, North Carolina's been a state that Democrats always get super close in, but Republicans usually end up winning it at the end of the day. Trump won it in 2020 by a point. Um, their Senate races typically go to Republicans by like a handful of points, like 2 or 3 points. Like it's a state that always kind of leans red. So I would actually be slightly more bullish about Trump winning this. I mean, it does make sense why I think bettors would put this in leaning in Trump's favor. Um, but yeah, like the fact that it's closer than Georgia is certainly interesting. You certainly like because I mean Georgia's actually a state that Biden won, and North Carolina is not. And if generally the election is moving to the right, that North Carolina would be leading the swing states in being the farthest to the right, but in this case, it is not. Maybe because it's because of the scandals in the state. The Republican governor candidate had a really big scandal where he said a bunch of crazy stuff on like a porn site, and Trump kind of tied himself to him, so that's not a good look. So that could be what's driving it. But do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that could be driving it. You also have the recent Hurricane Helene in the state, wiping out a big part of Western North Carolina, which uh, there's a lot more rural towns, a lot more Republican-leaning towns, could discourage some people there to vote because they need to take care of their own business. But yeah, no, I generally think that it's due to the governor race there. Some people might be scared into putting money into North Carolina. And also you just have, a lot of there was that one period over the summer where Harris had some good polling in North Carolina that a lot of people probably jumped into the betting markets there and are just holding their position as well.
Hmm.
Which might be, because if you saw those good polls for Harris in North Carolina early, you might have been inclined to, hey, let's make some money off of here. But then as the polling regressed back to a dead heat and a little bit tilt Trump, you might have just been like, oof, I don't want to pull out at a big loss and you're just
Yeah.
holding. So yeah, I don't know. All the polling here seems to suggest a slight Trump victory, which we also have in our projection, but yeah, you also can see that Biden and Hillary were also up, so and they both lost the state. So it's interesting to see maybe this Alice poll keeping Harris in the mix here. Maybe there's just a lot of hedging here from the pollsters. They're all basically giving the same results, so maybe there's something wrong with the polling as well.
Mm.
But anyways, let's go to Pennsylvania, which is going to be the next state. We're now moving into the tilt states, but
Yeah.
Pennsylvania is the last one that's not basically dead even, and it's going to be going for Trump here at a 54 to 46 margin. Pennsylvania is the most important state for the election. As you can see, it just crossed Trump over 270 electoral votes, the necessary number that he needs to win the election here.
Hmm.
And Pennsylvania recently has been the site of a lot of events, a lot of rallies. Of course, you have that Trump return to Butler rally where he survived his first assassination attempt. You have a lot of events from the Democratic side as well.
Hmm.
And you have Harris sent Obama over to Pittsburgh, for
Yeah.
example, in the past week. So big events there, big names, and everyone wants to win Pennsylvania. It's clearly the most important state. And there's a lot of interesting signs in Pennsylvania. I will say that a lot of the high quality pollsters have Harris doing well in the state New York Times, Quinnipiac, and there's a lot of I don't know, slightly Republican bias polls in the average. So Harris is probably actually leading the high quality polling average. But I think a lot of people this cycle think that Pennsylvania is going to be to the right of the rest of the Rust Belt, which historically has not happened, right? Historically, Wisconsin is the first state to flip
Hmm.
into Trump's column, but for some reason, people think Pennsylvania is going to be that state. What do you think about that?
I'm I'm not too sure. Like I've been like I don't know. Like I definitely personally am most confident Michigan is going to be the most to the left. I don't know between Pennsylvania and Wisconsin though. On one hand, Pennsylvania was bluer in 2020. I believe it was slightly bluer in 2022, but I'm not entirely sure on that. So maybe I won't use that. But on the other hand, an argument for Wisconsin being to the left of Pennsylvania is, again, I'm going to say it again, Harris has been making gains among educated white voters. Wisconsin has a higher percentage of white voters than Pennsylvania. So maybe that slight demographic difference between the two states is causing Wisconsin to move to the right at a slower rate than Pennsylvania is here. So I don't know. There's multiple arguments to look at. Right now, I think they are both a dead heat. And yeah, like I think the betting markets being practically even in these states definitely makes sense. In Wisconsin, Pennsylvania at least. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Um, Likely the discrepancy here is probably just based off of the polling. Uh, you know, Wisconsin polling is the only of the swing states that has her up, which is probably booing her. Wait, the new poll drop, the New York Times poll just got added, so that just
Mm,
moved the average to 0.1 from 0.5. But I guess technically Trump is still ahead. So
hmm.
yeah, we're gonna be moving on now. I'm not sure which is, I
The
guess
next two
Wisconsin
close,
or
yeah,
Nevada. Yeah.
Wisconsin, ah,
Let's Wisconsin. We just
we'll
talked
do,
about
yeah.
Wisconsin.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, this one's interesting. Wisconsin being the most left to the left of the Rust Belt states. I don't know. Again, this is what polling suggests at least. Um, I don't know if I buy it though, because polling Wisconsin is very notable for its polling errors in presidential years, 2016, 2020. Definitely, people thought Wisconsin was going to be the furthest left in 2020. There was some um, polling suggesting Biden winning by like 12 points, and it was incredibly off. So I don't know. I'm seeing as it was the closest in 2020. Also, it's definitely hard for me to see Wisconsin left of Michigan. Like even in 2022, it's undoubtable that Michigan Democrats did better than Wisconsin Democrats. So I find this result kind of weird.
Yeah, it's a little weird to me too. I'm not sure if I buy it as well. This is definitely a weird discrepancy. Um, I don't know. The Wisconsin polling, like I said, the only swing state that has Harris ahead, but it's also the swing state where in the past presidential elections with Trump, it's absolutely underestimated Trump by a ton. Obviously, so you're on this day, Clinton up 6, Trump takes the state. Biden plus 6.3. Biden very narrowly wins the state. And these same pollsters that have the state tied, if you go to the Trump versus Biden one, it looks really, really good for Biden, and he won by 6 less. So that's, Trump historically has outperformed the Wisconsin polling by 6, 7 points. Very good for him, but not sure if that's going to repeat. So we don't know what's going to go on in
Mm.
Wisconsin. Otherwise, I'll talk about why I think maybe Michigan's the right of Wisconsin when we get to Michigan.
Okay.
But for now, let's go on to Nevada, which Nevada is a state that has looked good for Harris in the polling as well. I'm pretty sure that's why. Um,
Yeah,
she's gonna
that's
be
why I would think
she's
bettors
gonna
would do
be
that.
up
Yeah.
a lot of the pollsters. If you disregard the Wall Street Journal poll that I think is a little weird because it has Trump up 6, but then it has Harris up in the rest of the Sun Belt that that's just weird. But the rest of the polling here looks really good for Harris, especially like this Alice Intel poll that had Trump doing very well in the Rust Belt has Harris up 3 in the state, and a
Mm.
lot of it has to do with also the fact that Biden won the state in 2020. Perhaps people just think the shifts are not going to be enough for Trump to overtake Harris here.
Yeah, like I mean, I would generally say that Nevada is moving to the right slightly, but again, Biden did win it by a decent margin, and like he won by like 2.4 or something like that. That's that's a decent amount that Trump has to chip away at to end up beating Harris here. I do typically think nowadays that Harris is favored in the state, and we reflected that in our last presidential prediction, but. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think this one makes sense, it being very close and better, slightly favoring Harris. But the final one, Michigan, is a bit of a mystery to me. Do you have any thoughts on the Michigan results? It's like pretty much
So,
exactly 50-50. Yeah.
okay, so Trump, I guess, is ahead by a
Hmm.
hair here because it says he is the lead, so
Yeah.
we'll give it to him in the map. But yeah, it's basically 50-50, dead even. I think first, I mean, if we first examine the polling, a lot of it is suspicious because the same polls, like as for example, the Quinnipiac poll has Harris up uh, in Pennsylvania, and there's not going to be that big of a discrepancy with Michigan and Pennsylvania. But I think we start with the polling. It looks pretty good for Trump. I think that's a good start to why you would see him doing better. Like he just took the lead out of a very good Harris stretch
Hmm.
here. And if you look a little further back, the same polls, for example, like the Quinnipiac poll, had Harris up 5. Now it has Trump up 4. That
Hmm.
probably moved the needle a lot.
Yeah.
Second of all, maybe people think there's a potential chance of Michigan being to the right of Wisconsin because of that uncommitted movement that was strong in Michigan, the whole pro-Palestine movement. Maybe a significant Arab population there voting for Jill Stein for the Green Party there. I think there might have been a like an Arab majority
Yeah.
Arab mayor there that
Endorse
also
Trump. Yeah.
endorsed Trump.
Hmm.
Maybe that's significant. I don't know if that really moves the needle at all, but maybe that's why.
I I do have
Oh,
a bit of a counter argument to that, in that, I mean, okay, one, I would say the uncommitted movement, I feel like I feel personally was much stronger against Biden than it is against Harris. I feel like we hear a lot less of the issue now. But that's one point. My stronger point is Arab Arab voters, like Muslim voters, like, and Michigan having a significant Arab community. That doesn't, like, I don't really think it'll have much of an impact electorally when for and I say this because in 2022, um when Gretchen Whitmer, the Democratic governor, won in a landslide, she won by like 10 points. Generally, the entire state moved left, except for these majority Muslim communities, which moved right. So I think I I mean that them shifting to the right had almost no impact on her margin whatsoever. And I think maybe in an extremely close 50-50 Michigan, yes, but that can have an effect. But I happen to believe that Harris still has a healthy lead in Michigan, in my opinion. I think she's going to win the state by by like 1 or 2 points. Um, maybe even 2.5, maybe even on par with Biden. So, but yeah, like I don't know. I just don't see them having much of an impact personally.
yeah, I agree. I'm just really speculating on why
Yeah,
people are putting money on Trump. I mean, like I agreed with you on the presidential prediction that Harris is likely winning Michigan by 2 or so. It looks good for her. I agree that the issue died down. But I don't know if you can compare this race to 2022. I think Tudor Dixon was uniquely weak as a candidate. She was pretty extreme. And even though she's tied to Trump, Trump has recently been able to sort of portray himself as more moderate. Some polls show that people believe Harris is more quote unquote extremely liberal, like too liberal compared to Trump being too conservative. So I think maybe he's an interesting character, but he might be able to portray himself as more moderate compared to the 2022 candidates. And maybe that's also reflected on how he's outrunning practically all the Senate candidates. Uh,
maybe. Yeah.
so I don't know. But regardless of that, this is the map for the betting odds as of October 12th, 2024. Likely or last betting markets video, unless we have a very extreme shift in the betting markets or something crazy happens. We might do one more at the very end, but for
Personally,
now,
I doubt it. Look,
yeah,
what can
I
possibly
doubt it.
happen? Like the last major event between like the two candidates is the debate. I really can't see much changing in terms of like, I don't know. Like I feel like the election is like, what can really change between um now and November. But I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. It's
Agreed.
crazy
Not
things
sure
can
what will
happen.
happen, but if Biden passes away and Harris is now the next president and she's already sworn in, that could change something. I don't know. Something could happen. I mean, crazier things have happened for sure in the past month. You know, but maybe Harris is her own Access Hollywood tape. Uh, her old days, something leaks. Who knows? But anyways, 296 to 242.
Hmm.
Trump wins the presidency in the betting markets. If you want to bet on the betting markets, be of age and probably hop on a poly because predicted is sort of going down. They've
Yeah.
been slacking, so we're basically moving all our election prediction uh, betting market content using Polymarket now.
Yep.
Anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a like on this video down below. Comment down below why you think the map looks like this. Is it because of the Elon and Trump pumps, which we didn't even talk about today? Elon and Trump pumping poly market odds for their supporters. And comment down below why you think it looks like this on the betting markets. Subscribe to the channel down below for our future content. We'll be releasing our best case videos
Hmm.
really soon. I think that's next on the agenda. And ring that bell and share this video with your family and friends. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.